Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us today, and thanks to the Memorial Center for Entrepreneurship for asking me to moderate this session. We have 3 alumni who had the opportunity to explore entrepreneurship as students and have successful startups. So we're looking forward to meeting them today. Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm delighted to moderate this event. It's a topic that's near and dear to me, the topic of entrepreneurship. I've had a business for 18 years. I'm the CEO of DMC, Dallas Mercer Consulting, where we manage workers' compensation and sick leave for employers, and we also have a safety division to the company as well. I'm always fascinated to understand how people came to be entrepreneurs, so it's nice to hear everybody's stories. I'm 18 years in, and sometimes I still have to think back as to how did I end up here, so it'll be interesting to hear your journeys as you are just getting started. So first of all, I'll introduce Emily. Emily Bland is the CEO of Succeed and alumni of Memorial with a Bachelor of Commerce. And next we have Jeremy Andrews, co-founder and CTO of Collab Software. He graduated from engineering and applied science at Memorial. And lastly, we have Isaac Adjouan, hopefully I did that okay, co-founder and CEO of Metrics Flow. He's also an alumni of Memorial, the engineering and applied science. So welcome everybody, and I have a few questions to ask you, and then hopefully we'll get some questions from the audience. If not, I'll fill in with a few of my own. So first, Emily, if we could start with you and tell us a little bit about yourself and I guess how you developed your interest in entrepreneurship and what attracted you in this to get going and where you are.
Thank you so much for having us, Dallas. So for me, entrepreneurship was never on my radar growing up. I was set that I was going to be an accountant, take what my parents and some of my mentors had considered a stable job path that was very secure. So came to Memorial with full intentions that I was going to be an accountant, continued down my path of doing all of my entrepreneurial work terms with Ernst & Young, signed my job contract to work with them after university. I very much thought I had my life all figured out. However, throughout my entrepreneurial, I guess, journey or start in university, I became part of the Enactus Memorial organization. So it's a global organization of 77,000 university students on 1,400 campuses around the world that are dedicated to making real change. So through being exposed to Enactus, I got the opportunity to learn about how entrepreneurship and how just a group of students could really make a difference, both here in Newfoundland, but also around the world. So Enactus really hooked me from an entrepreneurial bug. Succeed actually started as an Enactus project and was winner of the World Cup. So beating 77,000 university students to be named the best student-run social enterprise. So Enactus very much was my start to entrepreneurship, but also where Succeed was founded.
Good. Wow, that's interesting. So Jeremy, do you want to tell us a little bit about what attracted you to be interested in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, for sure. It's actually a pretty similar story to Emily. So it wasn't on my radar at all until university. I was very fortunate to do the co-op program, the engineering co-op program at MUN, which actually allowed me to get 2 years of work experience before graduating. And that 2 years was plenty, I think, to make me realize that similar to Emily, a stable sort of expected career path wasn't what I wanted. I think there was, again, some student teams that I was on. One of them was the Baja team in the engineering faculty, and then also the Hyperloop team. So I kind of simultaneously realized that the work terms I was doing, that wasn't really the career path I wanted. And then those student teams made me realize that we're very capable of competing on a world stage and doing things that were world class. And I think that gave me the confidence to want to start something. And then the nail in the coffin, I think, was my last work term I got with Tesla, working on the Model 3 in Silicon Valley. I really like cars, and I really was interested in working in Silicon Valley. So I thought that was like my dream work term. And then I got down there, and it, again, still kind of just felt like a job. And that's like when I really started to think hard about what do I want to do after graduation. And so came back and said, nope, not going back there. And instead started CoLab.
Interesting. Okay, Isaac?
Thanks, Dallas. I think mine is also, similar to Jeremy's and Emily's. So I immigrated from Nigeria just about 10 years ago, and I attended MON as well. Went through the engineering co-op program, and while I was in engineering school, I had built this platform on the side that reached over 300,000 people. I didn't really know what entrepreneurship was. I was just focused on the engineering program, and through my work terms, I started to just develop interest in, building technologies in general, and just see where it goes. So there was no any clear path. But when I was graduating at Memorial University, I had met with one of the professors at MON, who is also part of MC. And I met with him twice a week for 4 months, and just really getting advice and mentorship on entrepreneurship. And when I was done with the program, I think I had enough encouragement to at least try, even if it doesn't work. And since then, it's been a journey now that I've worked on for the past 4 years.
So none of you started out wanting to be entrepreneurs and figured it out while you were really during the journey of being educated, which is, and all of you have had work terms, right? I mean, Emily, work term was in your program, and Jeremy and Isaac. So that's interesting. Okay. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your startup and I guess, what you've accomplished so far. Emily, do you want to start?
Sure. So Succeed, we're on a mission to help the world grow. So we design and build hydroponic gardens that empower anyone to grow fresh produce for less than 30 cents per day. The majority of the work that we're doing right now is focused in the educational space. So realizing a huge gap in the market in terms of what kids are learning in the agricultural sector when going through the K-12 system. Most of them are just getting this little newspaper bean plant, despite the agricultural sector actually accounting for 1 in 8 jobs in Canada. So we're on a mission to change that. So integrate both tech and agriculture at the younger age and empower kids and students in order to pursue a career in agriculture. Right now, we have about 1,700 gardens operating across Canada. We're in over 600 classrooms. So as we sit right now, there's over 15,000 kids that are using Succeed Gardens in the classroom, on track to hit 25,000 students by the end of the 2021 school year. We were named the first SheEO, so female founded and funded company through a global organization to receive funding in Newfoundland, which is really exciting. But one of the things that I'm most proud of is all of the work that we've done has actually been accomplished by a team with the average age of 24 that is completely female. Me at the age of 26, I'm currently the oldest employee we have, which is different. So I'm really proud of Succeed and the fact and what we've done, that it's been such a young team that just truly cares about the mission that we're on and what we're trying to change and affect.
That's fantastic. And are there any schools in Newfoundland and Labrador involved?
There are. So we're actually, we hit about 80% of students in the Newfoundland Labrador area that go through right now. And each of the gardens are actually hand built by youth experiencing homelessness through a partnership with Choices for Youth. So all of our big production and research partners are all in the nonprofit space, providing social impact beyond what we're doing, I guess, from the consumer point of our product.
Wow, that's great. Okay, Jeremy.
Yeah, so CoLab has developed what we call a collaborative design review platform for mechanical engineering teams. So basically, anybody working on 3D model design, 2D mechanical drawings, they can upload their design data to our platform, easily share it with internal and external stakeholders, and then execute sort of virtual design reviews. Since graduating, it's been about 3 years. We've built the platform from scratch. We've signed up a number of Fortune 500 manufacturing companies in like the automotive, energy, industrial equipment sectors. And we've raised, I think, to date over $3 million, built out a team of now 30 plus people here in St. John's, and are just continuing to grow and sign up really exciting customers, and I think building a really exciting product.
So the head office is here, or are all employees here?
Correct, yeah.
They're all here.
So we have some remote employees now, which is exciting, and trying to support that better given the pandemic. But I think just in general, we've always wanted to be remote, and I think this has given us a really good opportunity to do that better, do it well.
Good. And Isaac, why don't you tell us a little bit about your startup and what you've accomplished?
Thanks, Dallas. So we're looking to replace web cookies. So if you look at how users browse today, the traditional industry have generally used cookies to track users on the website. So we're coming to market with a better solution compared to what's been in the market. And at Metrics Flow, we work to shape the future of data attribution and a new kind of relationship between companies and their customers. And also we are advocating for privacy first practices. And we're also equipping our customers with more less invasive customer learning solutions to help them with their data. So in one summary, what we do is really to help companies build a better relationship with their customers using data. In terms of the accomplishment we've made, or the progress we've made, I should call it. I'm not sure if I'm going to call it accomplishment yet, but we look at it from three main categories. So firstly, from customers, we started developing the technology from a platform that I had built. So really just starting to learn our market, to deploying it across Canada. So we've worked with local companies locally here as well as across Canada. So we've worked with one of the largest companies in Canada as well as in the US as well. And then most recently, we entered the Japan market. So we're really focusing more on how we can penetrate larger markets outside of North America. In terms of our team, it went from just myself trying to figure out what I was doing to now we have 8 full-time people working for us. And then also in terms of funding, we've gone from raising money from myself with my credit card, and also just trying to, I started, renting out my room, trying to get money so I can pay rent. And now we've gone to a point where we've raised just about 1.3 million in total since we started. And then in terms of our partners, we're looking to also expand our partnership, locally here as well as across North America. Most notable partners we work with Microsoft and Salesforce. So we work closely with those companies as we continue to build our technology.
Wow, that's fantastic. So, Emily, if in a couple of words you could say, what was the biggest impact? I mean, where was that turning point, and who in that realm contributed, or agencies or organizations, or who's been there to help, and who's
I think we're in a really fortunate place in Newfoundland to pursue entrepreneurship, that there's so many incredible people, whether it's government related, it's private sector, it's public, that are really willing to put their hand out there and help and support. For us, government organizations have been incredible. They've been a big part, especially in the first year, that gave us the funding to be able to make Succeed even possible. The Woodward Group of Companies was one of the first big customers that we had that actually brought our gardens all across Labrador, and none of it that was incredible. Even the university, there's so many programming out right now, from MCE to the Genesis Center, that I feel like if I start listing some of that have been most impactful, I'm going to miss a whole lot. But yeah, it's an incredible.
What about you, Jeremy? I mean, is there anyone that you can really think of that's really been impactful?
Yeah, you mentioned turning point. I guess MCE was an important turning point for us, because earlier I explained it like it was so simple. Just kind of light bulb went off and we decided we didn't want to take jobs anymore, but it wasn't actually that clear cut. We really struggled with that for a bit. But there were folks at MCE who at the time were kind of just working out of some offices in the engineering building. There was no space or anything like that. Who really just pushed us to go for it. The kind of saying that the jobs will always be there if you want to go that route. But this opportunity might be once in a lifetime, and you should really take it. And then from there, MC just fanned out into like tons of other connections and opportunities, whether it be accelerator programs. We did a number of accelerator programs that MC put us onto, and then funding opportunities from local and regional funding sources that MC connected us with. So it really was a genesis for a lot for us.
It's good. And Isaac, do you have someone or, that you point to or that was pivotal in getting this going?
Right. So I think there were some key turning points, or I would say some key points where I think were very relevant to the company's progress. I think the first one is MC, similar to Jeremy. I think one of the key challenges I had then was because I'm an international student, I'm under a specific visa, and the only way I could continue to build the company was to figure it out. Otherwise, I'll get deported. So I had to work very closely with MC, and I had that option to try, and if it didn't work out, I could just go back and get a job in the industry and work full time. I met with MC twice a week and for 4 months. So that was a very big. At the end of that 4 months, there was a very important decision that I had to make, which was to pursue entrepreneurship. And then since then, it's just been working with the ecosystem. So the startup ecosystem in St. John's was great. We work with Genesis Center. We were a client. We just graduated this year. Also, we've worked with other incubators and accelerators across the country, and we're looking to continue to just grow that. Government agencies have also been very helpful. So they've helped us with grants and just to encourage us and keep us going. So I think in general, I would say if you look at it in one full picture, I would say the whole startup ecosystem in St. John's have been very helpful.
That's great. I often chuckle because people say to me, "Oh, you have your own business. You can work whenever you want," and it's all the time. I mean, there's this myth out there or something that So I mean, getting a job is kind of a little bit easier because starting your own business it's a lot of work. So we have a few questions now from the audience. The first one is, what are the current headwinds you're all facing, and how are you working to address them? And then there's a second part to that, so we'll go with the first one first. So the current headwinds you're all facing, and how are you working to address them? So we'll start with Jeremy this time.
Yeah, I thought that was a great question. So for us, I would say one of the biggest challenges we have is just getting the product right. It's a really complex product. There are a lot of moving parts. We have to do like 3D visualization in the cloud and have this whole sort of review and issue tracking system around it. And it's a pretty entrenched industry. So there's some like lumbering big players in the market that don't make it super easy to enter. So for us, we've kind of realized that and have to do a lot of upfront product building and investment and be a bit of a product focused company in the short term. COVID-19 has been interesting with a lot of people kind of moving online. We've definitely seen an uptake this year in our usage. I think we've kind of 10x'd our usage in the last year, and there's been a lot of sort of growing pains associated with that, but they're all really, really good. And we always say, it's a really great problem to have. So yeah, I would say the current headwind for us is really just making sure we hit the mark on the product.
Okay, so where would you say you see your group going or your group's industry going in the next 3 years, maybe?
Yeah, that's a good question. So this has been like one of the slowest industries to move to cloud. I think part of that is a lot of IP concerns. So this design data for a lot of these companies is some of their most sensitive IP, intellectual property, and there's just a lot of hesitation to move it into the cloud. The competitors I mentioned are now, though, trying to do that via acquisitions and building their own sort of cloud technologies. So it's definitely moving that direction, and I mean, all the more reason why we need to be really focused and fast when it comes to building out a good product.
Okay, so Isaac, what would you say are the current headwinds you're facing, and how are you working to address them?
I think the current one for us would be product market fit. So our product has iterated a lot. There's been a lot of significant changes in our R&D and also to the core product itself. So just getting that feedback as quickly as we can from our customers to iterate on our product and make sure that what we're building is most relevant to them, and they're also getting the most value from the product. That's what we're currently very hyper focused on, just to make sure we can align both. COVID-19 has also been a very big problem for us this year because a lot of our customers are moving digital, but they're also cutting on spending. So there's also a cultural change that we're seeing within organizations where, in many ways where they've worked in the traditional way in offices or, in different areas of the organizations, we're seeing them now move their whole operations online. That is creating another kind of problem that we're seeing, which is to reliance now on information and data. And so for us as a company, we need to be able to better present the solution to the customers to make sure they're getting the most value from it.
Okay. Emily, what are the current headwinds you're facing and how are you working to address them?
For ours, it's definitely COVID related as well. We've been hyper focused on the educational sector for the past year, and going back into this 2020, I guess, school year, we've had a bunch of contracts that have been pushed out just because there's a lot of pressure on teachers. There's a lot of growing pains and challenges in terms of what's happening in the educational sector. But it's also exciting because I think our K-12 educational sector has needed to be disrupted a bit, bringing in new material, be focused on more hands-on, and change kind of the approach that kids are having in the classroom in terms of how they learn. So it's exciting because we're in this changing industry and getting to sit on a lot of interesting conversations that are going to help define what the new school system and school year looks like, but also challenging from a business perspective right now that our main clients, the people that have funded us to go into schools, very much want to give teachers some break and some breathing room, which we fully support and agree with. But it's challenging to sell to the sector right now as a whole.
Right, but it still plays such an important part. I mean, especially people who are remote, like on the Isle of Newfoundland and Labrador, so it's certainly still pretty important. Isaac, where do you see your group's industry going in the next 3 years?
For us, I think companies will become a lot more data driven. We're seeing people who generally would, just do their job without needing to provide key performance metrics or provide any data to show how they are progressing on their work. We're starting to see that now, and how we can help these employees and companies align with that new growth direction. I think it's something we're very passionate about. So we're just seeing now that a lot of our customers are starting to rely more on data, and we think we can help them with that.
Okay. And Emily, what about you? I mean, can you see 3 years out? I mean, where do you think you're going?
I'll speak on the agriculture side of what we do. My opinion on what's going to happen in agriculture is very different than what you'll see most media or researchers speak about. The past 20 years in agriculture, I think we've over-urbanized everything. We're depending on massive super farms or one area to be responsible for 90% of the world's food production in one ingredient. I think you're going to see a very decentralized approach. So what you're seeing happening with COVID or a lot of these E. coli scandals, I think we've gotten to a place in agriculture where we've over-urbanized everything that we're going to almost need to take a complete flip of the switch and start focusing more on local food, on bringing back backyard gardens and bringing more people into the agricultural sector instead of depending on a few key players to feed all of us around the world.
Yeah. So this question kind of goes back a little bit. So the question is, how did you make the leap from concept to action and trust yourself that you had something to build on? So Jeremy, do you want to start with that? So how did you make the leap from concept to action and trust yourself that you had something to build on?
Yeah. So there's only ever so much, I guess, trust you can have in that what you're building is the right thing. There's always a little bit of a leap, like the person said, of faith there. And for us, the first thing we started building didn't end up being the product that we have today. We kind of started somewhere different, and simultaneously while building it, we're showing it to people. But then we always kind of tacked on this other thing, and just I guess notice in people's reactions that other thing seemed to be more tangible for them, and more of an immediate problem solve than the first thing we started building. And so pivoted and to focus on building the product that we sell today. So I mean, some businesses go through that cycle several times. I think once is pretty light, actually. So it's less of a leap from concept to action and more of this iterative sort of approach. Yeah.
Okay. There's always a bit of a leap, like you said, with the trust to zone. Sometimes you just got to say, I got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So Emily, what about you?
I think the biggest thing was having a bit of customer validation so that it's not just your passion that's pushing this, but there's also a market for it and people willing to pay. In the case of Succeed, when we had first started as a volunteer project, we never ever saw this as kind of a consumer product. It was supposed to help rural and remote communities have access to fresh produce. However, we put out just a little article in the local Telegram, and in 24 hours, we had over 100 emails from people across Canada and the States wanting to buy our gardens, which at the time were made out of pressed plastic bags, Velcro, and duct tape. So your true MVP, but I think it was having a little bit of a concept. We had some type of plan on what we wanted to do, and then getting validation from potential customers that this is something they wanted.
Okay. And what about you, Isaac?
I think it's similar to Emily and Jeremy's. Mine was I had the problem first, so I experienced the problem from the platform I built, and I was looking to see if someone else had it, and if they were going to pay for it, if I could solve that problem for them, and how much they're willing to pay for it. So I think in most cases we started by first pitching it to many people. People met with us, so that was a good sign that people wanted to talk about it. And then we got our first customer to pay us $500 a month for it. So that was very encouraging, even though he couldn't pay our office rent. But we thought there was that need of someone willing to pay for it. And so we continue to validate to see who is really interested in this problem, and is this something worth solving. We validated the pricing up to a point where someone was willing to pay us about $9,000 a month for it. So as we continue to talk to people and people were willing to try it and were willing to pathways for the value we provide, we started to build an assumption that there might be need for it. And so we just continue to move based on traction.
Good. Okay, so Emily, this question is for you. It's from Samantha Gerbo, the ABCs of the Real Treat. I began focusing on food security in Newfoundland in 2004. I'd like to know if you have successful partners here in Newfoundland and Labrador.
So congratulations, Samantha, on your focus. Definitely one near and true to my heart. We've definitely had some great partnerships here locally in Newfoundland, from government ones in terms of getting awareness and funding. Let's Talk Science was a really great partnership for us in terms of getting awareness out there about Succeed. We partnered with Brilliant Labs to look at the tech side of agriculture, how we can get out there. We've always had support from the Newfoundland Labrador Federation of Agriculture. And then the core, we have two kind of operational partners that we have. So Choices for Youth that do all of the production side, and then a big sponsorship and partnership with Stella Circle in terms of actually using our gardens. So they have like 30 of our gardens they use to produce fresh basil locally. So there's lots of great organizations, both in the nonprofit and for-profit sector, that are always willing to join on and be part of our mission against creating food security here in Newfoundland.
Thanks. Isaac, focusing on offering superior customer service training, how do you target your audiences to grow your business?
So in most cases, the way I guess the question is about how we target our audience to grow our business, or how they target their own business. I'll take it how I do it. So most of the ways we do that is we engage a lot with our target audience. So for example, we are thought leaders in our space. This year we were nominated to the Martech Council in Canada, where we provide thought leadership to our audiences. So that way we're able to engage with them through those programs. Also, we attend events where we're able to share meaningful and valuable information to customers, and in return see if they would like to use our products. So right now we're focusing more on outbound, where we are reaching out to our customers and just engaging with them. The goal is to move into inbound in the near future, where we would have enough content and relevant information that our customers would start reaching out to us.
Okay. So Jeremy, who is your target audience in Newfoundland, or do you have one in Newfoundland, Labrador?
Yeah, we're not super geographically focused, but having said that, we do work with a number of companies locally in like the oceans and energy sectors, and it's really fun having local customers actually. And before COVID-19, I guess we were able to go to their offices and visit them and watch them use the product in person and give us feedback in real time. We still, of course, are doing that virtually, but yeah, so no, particular focus, but we do work with a number of really awesome companies here in the province in those sectors, and they are some of our best customers for sure.
Okay, so I'm going to just turn to COVID a little bit and ask, how did you adapt, or maybe even share a practice or something that you've learned that you think would be valuable to share that could scare some people off from something like this happening. And from a business perspective, I mean, you're all still here, so that's a really good sign. So, is there anything that you think would be valuable to share with people about something that you've learned or how you had to adapt? Or, do you want to start, Isaac?
So, in terms of COVID, how we have adapted. So it's been a learning experience for us as a company. We've never had a situation where people would have to work remotely and figure out a way to pivot most of our operations. And we took 4 approaches to adjusting to the current COVID situation. The first one we took was we also moved all of our operations to digital. We set up environments where people can come online and still have that one-on-one engagement with people through digital, because we know the experience is a little bit difficult for a lot of our employees who have to work remotely. Secondly, we focused also on just helping our customers instead of selling to them. So we realized that companies are still interested in engaging with customers, but they're just not in buying mood. So there's still opportunities to engage with them. So in most cases, we just focused on helping them and not necessarily request money from them. Also, we doubled down more on research and development. So we focus more on our products, making sure that we have a product to sell post-COVID. And then just trying to look for companies who will provide feedbacks to us during this time. And then lastly, we reduce our burn rates. So we stopped hiring this year, and then with the hope of hiring next year. So most learning for us is still new. It's not something that we've done before, but we just learned to keep our focus on our growth, make adjustments, and get back when the market opens again next year.
Yeah, well, it's new for all of us, so we're all figuring it out as we go. What about you, Emily?
I think my biggest advice in learning was not to lose focus on the bigger goal. So I think when COVID happened, we all started to adapt really quickly. And I think, I know I have a couple friends and we went through a bit of the growing pains as well of losing track on what that North Star was, and just, I think, treading water a bit and just trying to bulletproof every part of your business to make sure that you're still around when this happens. But it's really, really important to not lose track or forget on why you create this business, what the big things are that even at the start of 2020 you had as goals and you wanted to accomplish. Don't give up on those. Keep pushing forward. It's difficult, and it's probably a different pathway than what you thought 2020 was going to start off with. And I think that goes both personal and professional life. But just don't lose track on what your big goals are and why your company was set out, or you as a person set out trying to accomplish those at the start of the year.
That's good. Jeremy, what about you?
Yeah, we did a couple of things, I guess, when this happened. The very first being just reevaluated our sort of financial position, and worked pretty hard in the beginning to take care of our runway, I guess, and extend our runway as much as we could, because we weren't really sure how long the situation was going to last and what the capital markets would look like, venture capital would look like for the rest of 2020. So that was the first thing we kind of did, was look for additional funding and ways to extend our roadmap beyond what it was at the time. And then the second thing, I guess, was kind of readjusted focus, similar to Isaac, and focused on our product development. We actually took this opportunity to do a pretty big sort of overhaul of our product, actually. And I think the timing, it's good timing for that. And if your business is going to be, less focused on maybe adding new customers because of the current environment, then maybe you should shift focus to making your existing ones really happy and iterating on the product faster than you would have in normal circumstances. So kind of just like adjusting to what makes sense given the new sort of environment.
That's great advice. That's excellent. I mean, it sounds like you guys did okay during all of this. So Isaac, you started back in 2016, and it took a while for Metrics Flow to secure traction. What did you learn that, and what helped you to be so resilient that you could share today?
Right. I still wouldn't say we've secured traction yet. I think we're still working to get to the real traction that we're aiming to get to, which is to get much quicker adoption of the markets to start to move in the cookieless direction that we're hoping that the market will move towards. But I think one of the key things that I had to really realize early in the days was to better understand the position where I was, which was I had limitations as a person to actually execute a metrics flow. And so those limitations I had to get out of the way first. So firstly, I had to take care of my residency here in St. John's. That took a while to get that going. And then also there were some key things like I had never built a startup before. So I didn't understand. So when I finished engineering, I didn't actually know what VC meant. I thought it was voltage current, and I didn't realize it was actual venture capital. So there was a learning curve for me as a person where I had to rely heavily on building my knowledge as a person to really understanding what venture capitalist means, what it means to scale a company. We've mentioned things like runway. I didn't know what that meant in early days. So there's just a lot of things that needed to be learned. If you want to build a high growth company, which is where I think most of us are moved towards. But there was a learning curve where I had to spend a lot of time to just learn about the market, learn about startups, learn about entrepreneurship, also learn about how to sell. So when I started, I was a very terrible salesperson. I didn't know how to pitch. So just these very basic things were in my way of moving quicker. Also, in terms of how I was resilient, I just relied heavily on the network and surrounded myself with very smart advisors and credible people to just help guide me in my path. Also, I talked to a lot of other people who have built similar companies. So I talk with Joe Theo a lot. Joe Theo is one of the other founder who started here in Newfoundland and had to go through a similar path. So there is a learning curve to just getting there. And unfortunately, we haven't gotten real traction yet, but we're still working hard to get that.
Yeah, I'm 18 years in, and I still say I'm not there yet. I'm still working on it. So I get that. And then when you get there, you want to get to the next place. So it never really ends, unfortunately.
And then I also learned to realize that the goalpost always moves. So
it always moves. Yeah, always moving. Yeah, I'm totally there. I get it. And I'm always so cautious about people saying, "Oh, you're doing great." Oh, we're not quite there yet. We're still working on it. So I completely get it. So Emily, another question from Samantha. Currently, we have a 20% food production rate in Newfoundland and Labrador. Do you intend to advocate for more growth?
I do believe we're lower than 20% right now. I think the official stat, we're just under 10%, but the provincial government's goal through their Way Forward program is that we reach 20% in terms of food production. Succeed as we stand, we're not really an advocacy group. There's lots of incredible organizations like the Newfoundland Labrador Federation of Agriculture, Food First NL that are really pushing food sustainability and local food production from a policy standpoint. Where Succeed lays, we really want to be in the weeds. We want to be helping to fix the problem from the ground up. So that's why a big focus for us has been in the educational system, because we truly believe that, especially in our province, that the way we fix and create more of a sustainable agricultural sector here is through bringing in more young people. It's educating them early. It's getting them to want to be farmers from a young age and adding that tech angle to it that allows us to kind of fix that problem. Me personally, I'd love to rewind to 70 years ago when we produced 97% of what we ate on island. I don't think there's any reason that we can't be producing more here. And I think it's crucial for the future of our province that we do start looking at agriculture as a bigger sector and creating more of a sustainable sector here.
Well, I certainly think, with the pandemic, I think people are much more aware now of our food security, everything, but certainly food for sure. So starting to grow a business in Newfoundland and Labrador, is that a pro or a con? And maybe you could just explain a little bit with how so. So Jeremy, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, sure. Something I feel pretty strongly about. From my perspective, it's definitely been a pro. The amount of support you're able to get here from day one is, I think, substantially different than what you would be able to get elsewhere. There's just a real focus on entrepreneurship, startups, and technology in the province right now. And like Emily said at the beginning there, like everybody just wants to help. That's been our experience too. Everywhere you turn, there's somebody trying to connect you or support you or advertise what you're doing, introduce you to somebody. And I just feel that other places are just more competitive. If you're trying to do something similar in Toronto or the Bay Area, you're in there with hundreds, thousands of other companies, and the sense of community and this sense of support is just not the same. And the funding opportunities that are available here too on the provincial, regional, and federal level, I think are unparalleled. We spent a lot of time in 2019 fundraising in the U.S. and everybody was blown away with the level of sort of non-dilutive and supportive funding you could get in Canada and in Newfoundland. I think that was like real tangible evidence that it actually is. There's something special here.
Well, that's really good to hear. Isaac?
I totally agree with Jeremy. I think he pretty much sums everything up. I think it's a pro to grow a startup here in Newfoundland. For the most part, it just comes down to people helping you and supporting. And I think it's a small ecosystem where if you have any problem, there's probably someone who knows someone who would connect you to someone who then helps you with the necessary advice you need. We're very fortunate that we've had almost every, we've engaged with almost every industry, or not industry, I would say every key part of startup ecosystem that can help a startup. We've pretty much engaged with most of them. There are also very large corporations here who have been around for a very long time, who are willing to, come down and give you advice. We've been fortunate to, you also get advice from people like Jamie King, who is CEO of Verafin, all the way down to, government and memorial. Like it's just, there's a strong ecosystem here that helps you get started. And when you get started, is another completely different conversation about how you scale and move into other markets. There's also support here to help you get to larger markets. So I think it's a pro in my view.
And what about as an international student? I mean, trying to establish a business, that journey. I mean, how would you explain that to other people who are having the same thoughts, maybe?
So I think the experience is similar. Be international or be local. I think it's, a company is a company. So once you get to the point where you have some idea and you have the network, I think everyone gets similar experience. One of the setback that could, interfere with international students is there's a process set for international students, and that process is get a study permit, come here, study, finish, get a job, and go work for the workforce. So if you're gonna go away from that process, then you have to look into other options, which is not a traditional way for international students. And so there are limitations that could impact in terms of your visa to become permanent residents, and then moving the path of staying here and building your company. But in those cases also, there are organizations to help out. You just need to be talking to the right person in the ecosystem. But I think if you can just access the local network that's available here, it's not really a limitation in my view. I think the community has also done a really great job to remove those roadblocks. So in my view, I think it's international or not international. I think it's possible to build your business here in Newfoundland.
Great, thank you. Emily, do you have any comments or anything you'd want to add on Newfoundland and Labrador being a pro or a con as a place to start a business?
Definitely want to echo what Jeremy and Isaac both said, but also point out the fact that each of the three of us all spent time building our business outside of Newfoundland, and we all came back. So Isaac, I think you're in Waterloo for a bit building. Jeremy, you guys were down in the valley. We were in Toronto for 4 months, and we all came back here. So I think beyond just kind of being a true pride around Newfoundland, like we physically came back and we all did the same thing. I think there's something special here in Newfoundland. I think we're Canada's best kept secret out here on the Rock. And I think COVID has brought even more awareness around that. So I can't imagine a better place to start a business than here.
That's funny. I started my business out of here too, and came back 2 years later. So I guess we all migrated back somehow.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
true.
Anyway, that's great. So thank you guys. Jeremy, there's one last question for you. What are you doing to make your business more scalable?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that is very much a work in progress. I think as a startup, you always kind of need to find the balance between scalable and scrappy. I definitely feel there are periods where we focus too much on scalable, like putting processes in place for things that we didn't need to, and should have instead, been focusing that time on building the product and adding customers. And then there are other times where you're like, running around trying to manage the volume and really kick yourself for not having made things more scalable. So it's very much a balancing act and a work in progress. One of the things that's been a big focus of mine this year is adding a little bit more structure, I guess, around the technical side of our company. We have 18 software developers now and a number of supporting resources on top of that. And it's becoming, a lot to manage on a daily basis. So trying to add just enough structure there so that it keeps sort of working smoothly, but we don't lose that sort of agile, quick moving scrappiness either. It's been like a significant focus of mine. So it's a lot of work, and it's definitely a balancing act and something you kind of always have to be doing.
Yeah. And I'm still doing that too. So it's all, it's learning as you go. So I appreciate that. I think that's all the questions that I have from the audience that are there. Is there anything that you'd like to share that you think would be really valuable that I didn't ask? If anybody wants to have a minute? No, we're good. If there's anything that you think would be valuable to share, I think we hit on a lot of really good questions. I think it's so exciting to hear about what you guys are doing and that, you chose entrepreneurship. I think that it's, what's interesting for me is that you kind of had a little taste of it in university, or realized in university you didn't want to have a job. So, yeah. Which is all good, right? Because it's all part of the learning and figuring it out along the way.
Yeah, I think one thing I would like to add is we really need to invest in these things at the university level. All of us, I think, were interacting with some group, be it like a student team or MCE, while in university, and those things had big influences on, I think, us taking the leap and doing it. And I really think it's important for the province as a whole, actually, to invest in MCE and some of the student teams at the university and the college levels, because those are breeding grounds for entrepreneurs. They really are. And I think it's would be a very much money in, more companies out thing. So I really want to advocate for that.
Well, thanks, Jeremy. That's good. I mean, if any of the viewers today, liked any of the stories that they're hearing or heard about, there's many ways to get involved and show your support. So feel free to reach out to MCE, the Memorial Center for Entrepreneurship, at mce@mon.ca, and you can learn more about that. Also, MCE and Genesis are hosting a Community Collision, a networking event on October 29th at 12:30 p.m. Newfoundland time, and they welcome anyone who's interested in learning about and meeting the local startup community. So the link is in the chat to sign up for this if anyone is interested. It sounds like a really interesting event. So thank you today for participating. I'd also like to take, this is one of many events that are taking place this week during Mon Alum Days. To check out all the great events, you can visit www.mon.ca /Mon Alum Days. The link will be in the chat as well. And we want to thank our sponsors who are Johnson Insurance, Newfoundland Power, Genoa Design International, and MCE, Memorial University Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning as well. So thanks to the sponsors, and thanks guys, Emily, Jeremy, Isaac, for joining me today to have a great chat. I've learned a lot. It's great.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Thanks, Alice.
All right. Thanks, guys.